Hey guys, it's Jake here, and I'm with my best friend, Aaron Carter. And one of the things I think I need to do is tell his story and tell it from beginning to our end, because our end was where everything began as far as the last 3 years of his life, where everybody has their own opinion on that. I feel the need to just start from his beginning, go through our relationship, and tell you guys how everything transpired in all actuality and all reality. So Aaron, he started as a young child working under Lou Pearlman. Lou Pearlman had a lot of the pop artists of that time, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, etc., O-Town, you name it, Lou managed them. Aaron was the youngest of all of Lou's talent. And because of that, Lou Pearlman scammed all of his artists, every last one of them. Every last one of them had money stolen from them. Aaron got the double dose. All of his artists, all of Lou's, would get, a lot of money shaved off the top. Aaron would have all the money shaved off the top like everybody else, except the money went to Aaron's parents. So there was a middleman. Of course, everybody, places the full blame on Jane, Aaron's mother. She did spend the money. Bob seemed to have allowed it. Neither of them protected their son as far as the money goes. When Aaron turned 18, he had a little bit of money, but the IRS came knocking because nobody paid their taxes. So Aaron had to go to bankruptcy court. And the judge gave him the bankruptcy because Aaron would not sell anybody out. The judge appreciated how he accepted responsibility for everybody else's mistakes when the judge can clearly see that people failed Aaron. Because of the Lou Pearlman situation, because of the bankruptcy, he, for the first time around, got blacklisted. Aaron got blacklisted because, for the Lou Pearlman situation, that was just one thing. He was typecast also kind of as like the young boy bander. And, even though he was a solo artist, people kind of, viewed him as the original Justin Bieber. And then other people who, view Jesse McCartney that way need to know that Jesse McCartney really isn't the original Justin Bieber. Jesse McCartney is a newer version of Justin Timberlake because Jesse McCartney started in Dream Street, which was a boy band. Aaron was always solo. So just giving you that backstory, because once he got blacklisted, he's like, okay, what do I do? Well, he went into theater. He went into the Fantastics, Broadway, off-Broadway. He did Dancing with the Stars, and he was starting to realize, hey, the labels don't want me, okay. I still have my fans. I still have the ability to, reach them. So he taught himself to self-produce. And he taught himself a little bit more of the instruments that he somewhat played as a young child, but he really dedicated himself, and it paid off. I say that to kind of bring you into 2013. Before I met Aaron, I was friends with his sister Leslie. Her and I would talk all the time on Twitter. She would dote over her daughter Alyssa, talk about how her husband Mike hated her cooking. She would joke around a lot with me, and she was definitely a good ear to hear me out, and I was hoping I was the same for her, because I definitely was for him. I met him a year after she passed. And it took me a year of knowing him to even tell him that I knew her, because it just was kind of like a hard thing to talk about. But once I told him a year after I met him, he told me about Alyssa and how she was doing, and he didn't say much about Mike. I believe he lost contact with Mike. He might have still talked about Mike, maybe if I asked, but he talked more about her daughter. He was a happy uncle for her. Now, May of 2013 was the first show I seen of Aaron Carter. Now, as a young boy myself, everybody loved Aaron. It didn't matter if you were a guy, girl. It wasn't like Justin Bieber where only girls loved him until he dropped Boyfriend. Then guys started coming on, during that era. But when I was a kid, everybody loved Aaron. Teachers, parents, everybody was rocking with him. And because of that, years later, he came to my town, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to see Aaron. Well, a few years before I first seen him, he was doing this IBM Cloud Chat. Now, I don't know how the heck it worked. He didn't even know how it worked, but he was on it, and that was like the first time you got to see the streaming Aaron Carter, where he'd do live streams. And he was so cool with me, and we were just talking and talking and talking. So we were having a good time, and then I just said, hey, do you remember the song Real Good Time? That one's my favorite. And he's like, dude, that's my favorite too. And then he went into singing it. That was the only time I ever heard him sing that song from my childhood live. So I seen him do that live, and then we got off, and then a few short years later, he did a show in my hometown, and it was the After Party Tour. It was May of 2013, Steger, Illinois. You guys might even see the video on here. After the show, his manager, After Lou Pearlman, who was still his manager, was being really rude to people. But Aaron was cool, and he's like, no, we got time. And he was meeting people, and there were a bunch of girls, and I'm kind of tall, so they came up to my neck and my chest, so my head was really floating over everybody else. So I kind of stayed back and let them, have their moment with him, and I was just chilling in the back because he was meeting everybody. Well, there were about 4 or 5 of us left, and I was in the back. I was just going to wait my turn and, let other people have their moment. And that manager pulled him away. And he's like looking at us, and he's like, I'm sorry, guys, I really got to go. We got to go. And then he looked at me, and he's like, I'm going to remember you. A few short months later, he did. August of 2013, he came back to Chicago, and he did Market Days Festival, a fest he did 3 years in a row. And every show he did, it would get bigger and bigger. And the first year, his merch guy missed his flight. And it's funny how everything parallels in his and my relationship. We have like these full circle moments, and they always tend to happen. And he does still kind of haunt me. He still rides with me. He still plays pranks on me from the other side. I believe in the supernatural, and he definitely has made weird things happen in my life since he's been gone. But 2013, his merch guy missed a flight. And remember this story towards the end of the last time I seen him. His merch guy missed the flight, and my friend Misty, who I met that first show, she was right in front of me. She met Aaron already at that time. She met up with me. I met her that first show, met up at the second show. We're hanging out front row. He tweets that his merch guy missed a flight. He needed help selling merch. Misty seen it. She reached out to Aaron, and then she looked at me, and she's like, Jake, come here. She grabbed my arm as hard as she could. And she's like, where are we going? We got to go. We got to go. What? Where are we going? We got to go. So she walks us along this green fence. There's a bouncer towards the end of it, security guard, bouncer, whatever. I think she said a code word to him. I didn't hear it, but she said something to him, and he slowly cracked the gate up from the wall. It was like pressed up against the wall, so he moved it, and she just grabbed me by the arm and took me straight to Aaron and his girlfriend at the time named Amanda. And I remember Amanda real well. She was a real sweetheart at that time. So she introduces me to Aaron. Aaron and I hit it off, and for 30 minutes, we talk. Because there are other acts, there are other things going on at this festival, but he and I are talking, and we're talking big time. That moment, I became his friend. I was a little fan of his, but, knowing him, he and I hit it off, and we were friends ever since. Now, I did sell his merch for him. That night, I had to get out of there after the show to go to Taylor Swift's Red Tour. This was August 10th of 2013. So I had to get to Soldier Field from up by Wrigley Field. And if you know Chicago, that's a trek. you know, just to get through with traffic and everything, if you're going to try to make a show in time, you got to leave with some good time to get where you need to go. Park your car and get into Soldier Field. I did it in time. And I think Aaron and Amanda went to that show that night because I told them where I had to go. But he hit it off with me, and my past, just to let you guys know what I do, and you guys can watch this YouTube channel of mine. If this is on my YouTube channel, I'm going to put this everywhere I can. If you watch my YouTube channel, you know I'm a Michael Jackson impersonator. So I had to ask him about opening up for Michael Jackson at the 30th anniversary celebration, which happened on September 9th and September 10th of 2001 at Madison Square Garden. Michael was supposed to wake up on 9/11 to do an interview in the North Tower, the one with the antenna. So you guys, if you don't know, Michael was supposed to be in there. He was on the phone with his mother so long that night he overslept. Now, Aaron at that time did not know that Michael was not in the World Trade Center. So he's leaving and he's in a car. He sees the plane hit the first tower and he thought Michael was in there and he freaked out. And the people he was with, you know, they were cool with him, but they're like, okay, we got to get out of New York if we can. We got to get out of New York. So they did. But he told me that story, told me a few other things, and kind of just gave me a little bit of what I was going to be doing for the merch sales. So fast forward, you know, I kept in touch with him. I had his number. He paid me that night, and every time afterwards, he paid me $150. That was what my pay was for every show. And I say that because years later, after he passed away, I was short a little bit of money. Nobody knew what I made per show except, you know, people who I worked with. But I was short a little bit of money, and I said, you know, to my friends, hey, you know, I need to get to his memorial. What can I, you know, do to get some extra money? Can somebody help me? And one of my friends Venmoed me $150. That paid for my plane ticket to get here. The first time. That was my first flight. He's even my first tattoo. And the one under it is for Eddie Guerrero. Both of these died a week apart in November. So I'm going to try to not bounce around too much. I'm going to try to do everything in chronological order and, you know, split the difference with, you know, just filling in the blanks. So, Aaron, we kept in touch. I did shows all over the Midwest as far as working for him. So I'd go from, let's see, as far east as I've gone is Cincinnati for him. Indianapolis, go up to Michigan a little bit on the west coast of Michigan. Haven't really gone towards the middle. I went to southern Wisconsin and eastern Iowa. I'm not sure if I went to Missouri. I gotta think back, but I don't think he went to St. Louis. So all of Illinois I went to pretty much through the years, but anywhere in the Midwest I was his merch guy. And later I would become his video guy because I can shoot real good video, good stills, good photos. He'd use it all for promo. He knew I had the ability, so he paid me. And he definitely, you know, let me use whatever videos, whatever for my personal use, but also too, if I gave it to him, you know, I got the credit and everything. So that was our thing. So 2013, I meet him. As the years tick on, I meet more of his girlfriends, his bandmates, his tour mates, you name it. Basically everything I got to do with him, basically because of the friendship we built. I met his sister BJ, and she and I worked together at the South Bend, Indiana show. I believe it was Club Fever. And I filmed up front, and then after the show, BJ and I sold merch side by side. And I got to know BJ. She added me on Facebook. We kept in touch. We've been friends ever since until she passed away. And it's really strange because Leslie, Aaron, and BJ all died the same way. In a bathroom under suspicious circumstances, and people want to throw, the word drugs around. Well, it could be, but there's a little bit too much in play when it comes to him that I believe something more happened, as far as somebody else being there when he passed. So that being said, 2013, 2014, 2015, he did North Halstead Market Days in Chicago. Show kept getting bigger and bigger every year. He first did a small parking lot. A lot of people showed up. Second year, they knew he'd be back. So they had that stage in the same parking lot, and it was jam-packed, shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow. He was crowd surfing. People were crowd surfing. It was electric. And the people at North Halstead Market Days was like, man, this is cool. So, okay, this is what we're going to do. The next year, they put the show in the middle of Halstead. 300,000 people lined Halstead all the way down. They had speakers all the way down. When he played Aaron's Party, I Want Candy, the sky fucking echoed. I'd never heard anything like it. I've never heard anything like it since. So, Aaron was releasing music. He was real happy, but then music started getting pulled. And he started to explain why. And at that time, the same manager who pulled him from that first show, he confided in me and a few other people that manager was fired for raping him as a young child. And that wasn't why she was fired, surprisingly. Him and his family kept her around because she was good with money. She stole from Aaron, just like Lou Pearlman did. And then when he told me what she did, he told a lot of people about what she did. So luckily, I'm not the first to expose this, and I won't be the last. I say that because when he told me what she did, it kind of made sense how he talked about Lou Pearlman, because his body language was exactly the same, except he was adamant, about Lou, and he was more defensive about that. I didn't understand why until I watched Boy Band Con, which he told, the story about Lou and, how he kind of defended him, but then it made sense to me. At the time that released, I got to see a lot of the things that Aaron went through. And unfortunately, he got gay bashed a lot. He came out as bisexual. When I first met him, I figured out pretty quick he liked both men and women. Myself, I'm completely straight, and I'm straight edge. So when it came to women, he and I had a lot in common when it came to women. And two, when it came to being straight edge, I never seen him do more than a sip of alcohol. Now, when I first met him, the thing that he was doing, because he was anxious and he didn't know if anybody would help him with the merch, he was chain smoking. I don't like cigarettes, but he was chain smoking like crazy, and he was nervous. Like, you could tell he was nervous. Now, I'm doing this video because people have been making the claim that he's mentally ill. Drug-induced psychosis is not being mentally ill. He was as on it as you could imagine before all this stuff happened the last 3 years of his life. So I'm going to take you through everything, but there's a lot of cause and effect, and there's a lot of people who created the issues that he reacted to, and people only focus on his reactions instead of the actions that led into the last 3 years of his life. People can make their own opinions because they watched it play out in front of them, but mine, they're facts because I was there. I got to experience this stuff firsthand. I know what he was saying to be true at that time because he was clean and sober until the very last time I seen him, which surprisingly was 6 years to the day, August 9th into August 10th of 2019. So he was sober at that time. Funny enough, there are people who bullied and attacked him who will even acknowledge, they definitely acknowledge that he was, after that time, that's when all the shit hit the fan. So, he started dating this girl named Madison, and I got to meet her, got to know her. And before Madison, I didn't get to know this girl, but he was dating her kind of secretly. It wasn't a secret, but, you know, it was never around me personally that I got to witness these two together. He was dating a girl who was his backup dancer, who is, you know, the sooner or later girl. And the story behind that song, surprisingly, involves yours truly. Now, I'm going to let people in on the secret because friends of ours know the story. He did a show on this rooftop bar in Chicago called Vertigo. Drake Bell opened up for Aaron. I was with my friend Tanya. Tanya absolutely loved Aaron as a young girl, and I told her, hey, I'm friends with Aaron. You know, you want to meet him? Bullshit, you ain't friends with Aaron. Well, she found out pretty damn quick how close he and I were because I told him, there's this girl who looks like Miley Cyrus. She'll be with me. I want you to meet her. And she has the biggest crush on you. Well, at that time, it was kind of before Madison, and it was after, you know, Lee. Kind of like they had an on and off thing, but I guess at the time they were off for a moment, him and Lee, I introduced him to Tanya, and Tanya was right in front of me, and I just pointed at her. He grabbed her and kissed her, and her face, she turned around and she's like, what the fuck did you do? And I said, I told him about you. She's like, are you going to be hanging out with him tonight? I'm like, yeah. So she got to meet him and hang out with him with me. So we got to have a few crazy moments in life where I got to introduce him to some of my friends, and my friend group had Aaron as part of it. So he's dating this girl, Lee. Tanya and I, after he first met her, we're front row at this event. Drake's opening for him. Then all of a sudden, her, myself, and a few of her friends who we ran into because she knew a few people who were working the event, we all got pushed out of the way by the girl he was dating's family. They muscled themselves in front of us. And they're like, Jake, what's going on? Can you do something about this? I said, relax, I'll handle it. And we got a little bit of room, and we kind of like nudged ourselves to where we could see Aaron pretty good. So we were fine. But after the show, I said, man, you're crazy if you stay with that girl. These past days and past nights, walks under streetlights, something don't feel right. Sooner or later, she'll be. Trips to Chicago. Don't call me crazy this time tomorrow. You leave me, I'll follow. I got the tables. I got the bottles. The rooftop bar, he had his table in the corner, and that night supposedly he broke up with her. Well, I told him, you're crazy if you stay with her. He's like, man, I know, but look, we're gonna go to this place. You guys want to come meet us? And I'm like, sure. Where are we going? It was the weirdest thing. At that moment, the DJ starts playing music, and it goes so loud. Aaron's like looks at me, and he's like shaking his head. He pulls me in and whispers in my ear, Pride and Pro. Okay. Look it up, Tanya. Where are we going? We're going to this place called Pride and Pro. Place was called Prime Provisions. Him, Drake Bell, and his manager later in life, that was the first time I seen him with Aaron. Louie was right behind Aaron at that event. So Louie was vibing with Aaron, and I guess from what I understand, that's the night that sooner or later started. So it was real weird hearing that a year and a half later, and that line came, and I was telling people, you know, hey, he broke up with her, and I was like, yeah, I told him he's crazy if he stays with her. And then when they heard that lyric, they're like, Jake, what did you say to Aaron again? So that was one of the things that he did when it came to me. And I just kind of want to throw my name out there because people have kind of like been like, oh, you know, Jake was just a fan. And my name has been thrown around so much when it comes to Aaron because I've spoken up since he's been gone. But when he was alive, my comments on his live feeds would be buried. Now, before all the craziness and before people started paying attention, people would, see me around. People knew who I was, but all these trolls and people who attacked Aaron, they didn't know me because I would be buried in the comments. And then too, August 2019, few short months later, COVID happened. If he was still alive right now, you'd see me out on tour with him. You'd know who I am, at least by my face. But people to this day don't even know who his bandmates are. People don't know who he toured with. People just kind of focus on the negative. So I'm gonna just take you through a little bit more of the backstory on everything I know and everything I have seen happen. So Aaron, we do that show, and through the years there were a lot of shows, but whenever he'd come to Chicago, we'd meet up, whether it was a show or not. And there were times where he needed some help, finding venues and stuff. So I'd pass his name along, and I got him a few shows booked. So I'd get comp tickets, I'd get, paid to do certain things for the shows. And we'd have a lot of my friends, my family, everybody come out, meet Aaron, hang out with Aaron. Whether it was just a show or not, if there were times where he and I would be downtown, and there would be like friends of mine who I would tell, like, hey, I'm gonna go see Aaron, do you guys want to come with? And a few people took me up on that. And then there were other people who didn't believe I was friends with Aaron, and I'm like, okay, well, come hang out with me over here and we'll FaceTime him. He should be free about that time. Well, they'd arrived to the place where I'm gonna FaceTime him, and he's just sitting right there. So that was a few of the things I would do. We'd hang out in hotel rooms. There would be 4 a.m. steak and shake runs in Rosemont near Chicago. We'd hang out at the one by the Allstate Arena. I miss him. But I got to see a lot of the bad things that happened in his life prior to 2019, and then through the beginning stage of 2019. So as time has gone on, he dated Madison. They had a great relationship. I love Madison to death. She and I lost contact after they broke up, but which is understandable. I mean, he was my bro, so I get it. But she and him, I felt, had a good relationship. And that was kind of like when people started to begin to troll Aaron for his appearance. Certain things were going on. He got busted for weed, the mug shot seen around the world. That kind of like started the big trolling. And then he had health issues, which I will say probably started with the huffing that happened as a young child. When he first started with Leslie, he was a young teenager. And as time has gone on with that, when he was around me, he never had that drug issue, so we never talked about it. It was like, it's not there, so we talk about the current stuff going on. But when it came to him, he and I would have so many damn conversations about just life and things that happened in his life. So with everything that came out when he came out as bisexual, people started attacking him and gay bashing him and trolling him. The mugshot people kept trolling him for weed. And then near me, he had a 2-show night. I was going to meet up with him after the first show, and we were going to pack the place on the second night, myself and my group of friends. In Bourbonnais, Illinois, Bradley, Illinois, at a place called the Looney Bin, he had the by Felipe situation happen. I was not there for it. However, the venue owner and the person who attacked Aaron both died before Aaron did. So I've made this joke for years. When Aaron got to Heaven's Gate, the owner, his name was Nick Huffman. He's probably the guest referee. Aaron and I were huge pro wrestling fans. He loved the Hardy Boys, So he and I would talk a lot about wrestling, so I kind of imagined, Nick would be the special guest referee, and he would be facing Hayes on the other side. Both Hayes and Nick passed away before Aaron did. So Aaron had that situation happen where he got pushed into his drummer's riser, and him and his drummer got out of town that day. and it kept on for a little while after. Aaron made a fake Facebook to kind of just stalk the situation and see what was going on back home. He added me under his alias, which was his name backwards. So a lot of my friends got to see like this guy go back and forth with me, and then they kind of were like, wait a minute, Jake, is that who we think it is? Jake, wait. And people were kind of like commenting back to him, and my Facebook is, you know, real private, so my friends were having back and forth with Nora Retrack, and that's him. So they got to know him on Facebook too a little bit. So we had a lot of good memories through the years, but we did have some bad ones. And that was towards the end of our touring relationship. A few weeks before I last seen him, which was August of 2019, he Snapchatted me. Now, when he Snapchatted me with cuts and bruises on his face. I didn't think to screenshot. I thought to be his friend. I should have been the super fan at that one time and screenshotted, but I didn't. And that's the only regret I have with him, because that could have probably saved his life. So after Madison and him broke up, he started dating this girl named Lena. It is public knowledge that Lena attacked him with a knife. I got to see the cuts and the scrapes and the bruises on him before I last seen him in person. Now, I say that because, like I said, everything kind of just runs full circle. So that last show really rings in my head, because the way Misty first dragged me to see him, that night, Aaron and us were hanging out, and I seen the Pop 2K tour that he was on before. So I kind of knew a moment where I had to grab Misty so she could see just one moment. We were hanging out with Aaron while the show was going on. So I was like, Aaron, we'll be right back. Misty, come here. What's going on? Misty, we got to go. What's going on? Come on, we got to go. So I dragged Misty to the stage, so I returned the favor. She got to see Lance Bass come out and do Bye 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 with O-Town. And my boys from O-Town, they're awesome, all of them. They are some of the best dudes I've ever met. So good-hearted dudes. I didn't get to meet Lance while he was, you know, hosting that job, that gig, that tour, but I did get to meet Lance at Aaron's memorial, so that did kind of come full circle. So my first flight was for Aaron's memorial. My first tattoo was for Aaron's memorial as a memory to him. I got his autograph, and then the Love album, and the color scheme from the album was teal. So he and I just basically had this long relationship that lasted almost a decade. 6 years in person, and then the rest, the 3 years, kind of virtually, but we kind of lost contact. His phone number stopped working. I couldn't get through to him. And then his DMs, I mean, he got so many freaking DMs. He wasn't touring, so really, you know, we kind of lost contact. But when it came to his and my relationship, nobody was closer to me on the guy front than Aaron. But when it came to Aaron, I could think of 3 or 4 guys who would probably be before me on the friendship list. But I've always said, if I were to get married, Aaron would be my best man. If Aaron was to get married, I'd probably be the last groomsman he'd choose. But I'd definitely be a groomsman. For him and Melanie, who I still haven't met. But I've tried to talk to her a little bit, but there's really not been much communication between me and her, because she didn't really know me. She kind of came after our relationship. So the Lena situation, I kind of just want to backtrack, because I definitely want to make sure I say everything I need to. Lena started the issues with the Love merch, where people started having issues with them being shipped out. She took control of the Love merch, but she didn't do good with it. And that was a theme in Aaron's life. When he let other people run his life, things went bad. When he did stuff like self-promote, self-produce, he did amazing. he really did amazing by himself, but he didn't think he could. So his first two managers, Lori Knight and Lou Pearlman, molested him. Johnny Wright was amazing to him. Johnny Wright, kudos to you, because Aaron always sang your praises. I'm going to get back to the Lena situation. Louis, at the very end, it was him and Louis. He had some small managers here and there. Jason Sanchez, who I didn't meet. Lori Graff. It's kind of weird how Louis and Lou, Lori and Lori, he had managers of the same name. So you definitely kind of have to use the last names to keep the context. But Aaron and Lena, when they first started dating, she took the Love merch over from Madison. Madison did real good with starting it and putting it out. So because Lena took it over, it went to shit. Like, quick. Orders were backed up. Things just happened. And unfortunately, a lot of people had that issue when Melanie started. So Lena started the issues that unfortunately Melanie had to experience, and that also included the damage to the brand and the damage to his personality and his persona that she caused. And she's not taking any blame for it. People view her as this loving ex, which it really is not the case. The first time I met her, she pulled him from his obligation before it was over. So myself and the venue owner knew that I was friends with him. He's like, hey, you're friends with Aaron, where'd he go? And I said, he was right over here, where's he at? We look outside and his girlfriend's pulling him into a Rolls Royce and they're leaving. So I don't think Aaron got paid that night. But then he started getting pulled from his obligations, and there were things that were going on that got back to me, and that all led back to excuse me. Usually I'm a twofer, maybe a threefer. But she started pulling him from his obligations, and he started losing out on money. And they had a really toxic relationship up until the point where it got violent. When it got violent, he Snapchatted me, and I seen all the injuries and everything, and he didn't look good. I seen him a few weeks later in person, and he healed up for the most part. He still had a little bit of, damage on the back of his hand from what I could see, but his face, for the most part, was good. But, like I said, I pulled Misty up to the stage. It kind of paralleled the first time. That last show, just like the first show, he had some issues. His flight lost his box of merch. He'd charged $50 for a t-shirt and a meet and greet. He still had to charge $50 because he didn't have his shirts. He still had to charge $50, but he was taking his time with people and actually giving them time to have conversation and everything, trying to make it worth $50. Well, people started attacking him on Twitter because of that, because they're like, oh, we got to pay to meet you, all this bullshit. People started attacking him, and I'm like, well, he's an artist. He has to make money. And the merch experience, he used to do like a quick meet and greet photo, talk to you just for a split second and then on to the next one. No. If he's charging you $50, he's going to make sure you get $50 worth and have conversations with him. So we're at the State Fair, just like the first time he had issues with merch. And he had me come up on stage and film for him one more time. So I got to film his probably most famous live video where he did the backflip off Grayson, Hulk smashes drums. So that was like a video where he just told me to shoot, and it's my favorite song of the new stuff from Love. So I'm like, yeah, I'll shoot Bad to Good, no problem. And, I'm thinking, he wants me to film, but of course, I'm going to film Bad to Good and, a few others, but he told me to film it like one point, and he starts Bad to Good, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's telling me, film my favorite song. I'm thinking, okay, he wants me to film here, just because it's my favorite song, maybe just for me. Then he does the backflip, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Then he's like out of nowhere switched it into Aaron's party, and I'm like, okay, here's what he wants me to film. he brought kids on stage and started dancing with them and having a good time, and everybody's, enjoying the show. And I'm thinking, oh, he brought kids up on stage. He wants the video for the kids. I'm thinking it's either relatives of Hulk Smash or Vince, or, maybe somebody who he wants to, for the kids to have that video, their parents, whatever. No, he just wanted the backflip from bad to good. So we get through his set. I ask him about Lena, and he's like, oh, don't worry about that. I'm no longer with her. And that was it. That was all we had to say. He told myself and everybody else who knew him that was backstage at that time, he was no longer with, Lena. Here's the flip in the story a lot of people probably won't expect who follow Aaron's story. Him and Lena were done. Well, that was like an on-again, off-again situation with him and this girl. He got with Randy that night, Randy Lynn. And him and her, they have history, a lot of history. Now, a lot of people don't want to believe they have history because, like with Aaron, people bullied the fuck out of her to where they had the trauma response where they're like, okay, I'm going to make myself look cooler. I'm going to say whatever I need to. Him and her, after Madison, before Lena, got together and they had a miscarriage. Sometime in that time, they had a miscarriage. He got with Lena. He was still kind of cool with Randy. And then he got with Melanie. And then, because Randy was still kind of trying to hold on to that friendship relationship, her and Melanie had an issue. So to backtrack just to the last show, he said him and Lena were no longer together. So here is my last experience with him to kind of cap it off and take you guys through the next 3 years of his life, which you guys all seen. You guys got to see everything leading into that, but people forget about cause and effect. So the last 3 years of his life, what killed him was at the beginning of the time away from him. I last seen him August 10th. August 13th, 3 days after, he got a restraining order on Lena for the knife situation, and that was publicized. Everybody knew about it, except Nick and Angel. They weren't paying attention. Because if they were, they'd know not to trust Lena. That being said, a month after the restraining order was dropped, Lena started making contact with Aaron. Now, with stuff Aaron has told me, you have this documentary coming out about Nick. Most of what happened is true. Nick had a relationship with Paris Hilton, as everybody knows, and it was an abusive one. Nick did, for sure, rape Melissa Schumann. Now, Melissa Schumann has not gone about this the right way, in my opinion. Now, what do I have to say about this documentary? I don't know. I'll wait till see it. Maybe I'll fill you guys in on that. But he definitely did do what he did to Melissa, and Melissa has not handled the situation correctly. She wants to get justice no matter what, from what I understand. Now, people will have their own opinion, but that is what, for sure, Aaron said. And people forget about this part. Aaron really did have issue with Nick because Nick groped Lindsay Lohan. People forgot about this part. He groped his ex in front of her new boyfriend, Wilmer Valderrama. They were in a club, and Lindsay walked by, and he did a honk honk. So, as far as I understand, from what Aaron told me, 3 women have been hurt by his brother. And not just that, I knew Leslie and I knew BJ. Both of them and him were abandoned by his own family. Why? Not even because of what he was going to say about Nick in this moment, but Nick and Angel have spouses that did not like him sober, even before, the relapse and everything. Lauren and Corey both did not like him. As far as Angel goes, his relationship with Angel, he told me that the last time he and Angel were together, as far as, 2019, that situation, was her wedding. They had a little bit of conversation since, but really they weren't as close as, at the time of her wedding. And I believe from what he told me about Corey, that was Corey's doing. It really wasn't Angel, but Angel, happy wife, happy life. Same thing goes, if you're married to a guy, if you have a husband, you got to keep him happy too. Then Lauren absolutely hated him, and she added to the bullying that went on online. And Nick didn't give a fuck, really. Like, Nick didn't give a fuck what his wife was doing to his own brother, his own flesh and blood. So that being said, Aaron definitely told us about Nick's issues. Well, he told Lena that too, and Lena's like, well, you're going to the media calling me an abuser, but you won't call your brother out, and we all know what he did. She gaslit him into the point where he's like, you know what, you're right. So he went out and said what he said about Nick. While he's doing that, Lena goes over to Nick and Angel and says Aaron's threatening them. Aaron never said a word to Nick and Angel. And then the restraining order happened, and then we're trying to figure out what happened, because he had one on Lena, and Lena's payback was getting one put on him. So Aaron, the last little bit of his life, felt like his family abandoned him. That's when he started the relapse. I could see it happening. I definitely knew, and I was trying to reach out to him and help him, but I couldn't get through to him. And then the face tattoo happened on Instagram Live, all in the span of a month and a half. That was the tell. That was the moment. That was the break. Because as soon as he did that, one of the last messages he and I had together was, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I didn't do that. And then as time went on, he was off tour, he was at home. A few short months later, COVID happened. And when he was at home, when he was off tour, because tour was his life, tour was his passion, tour was what he definitely did the best. That's where he put his happiness. That's where he put his energy. He wouldn't use on tour. Like I said, the most I ever seen him do was drink Bud Light with Louis. And that was that night that sooner or later happened. He had a Bud Light with Louis. I seen what looked like vodka cranberry once. If that was what it was, could have been Sprite, Shirley Temple, whatever. It was a little bit clear and a little bit red, and whatever it was, he was sipping on it. But he really didn't do alcohol. He didn't do anything other than the chain smoking the first time I seen him. But funny enough, after knowing him as long as I did, I put him at ease, and he didn't smoke around me anymore. But towards the end of his life, the one thing that happened, he didn't get his tour advertised where he would be super focused on having people show up. So either he failed or Louis failed. I'm not sure where to place the blame on that last pop-up kind of situation tour where he'd be on stage and there'd be at max 20 people. That's not an Aaron show. That's not his standard. And that's not the standard I came to know from him. So that being said, he had those shows, and then one of the last videos I seen of him on stage, kind of like the full circle moment, we had the good times, but then the last show I kind of seen of him, he's chain smoking on stage. Like he just gave up. He didn't give a fuck anymore. His family abandoned him. He probably felt like he didn't have his support, and then getting constantly, everything I've seen so many fucking people who to this day won't let him rest. But not only that, I'm going to get hate for this. I'm going to get a lot of fucking hate for this video. And I already know. I'm name dropping people. Lori Knight, Lou Pearlman, for sure, molested Aaron Carter. And I got the dirty details from him about what she did to him. So guess who's managing, now that he's gone, Aaron's music release? Guess who is stealing from his son by giving it to a charity that is not accredited, that had to rebrand because it's not accredited? On our sleeves is now the Kids Mental Health Foundation. If you wish to donate, look up the charity that you're donating to. Please, go to any charity navigation site. Why did Lori choose on our sleeves? Her best friend is Joel Goldman, who is a high-up exec. What is he doing for Lori on the back end that they're getting all this money? You're probably wondering why I'm out here. I had to come out here because they had an estate sale for Aaron to pay back debts that he was paying off while he was alive. But again, the issues of the last 3 years. Aaron was having some monetary issues again because he wasn't touring and because of everything that was going on. He wasn't releasing music. 2015, he did the song Ooh Wee at that 300,000 people show that was getting ready to be released. It was partly released. There was a version he did with a singer named Pat Solo. It was partially released, along with later on a song called Pyro, and it is believed that Steve Zapp, who ran Sony, was partnering with Lori once he fired her, and they shelved his music. No matter what she did to him, they shelved his music until now, conveniently, because he doesn't have a say. He did love the music, by the way, that he recorded at that time, but it was tainted by the person it was shelved from. And now that it's being released, it's still tainted to people who knew him and knew the story. Now, Joel Goldman, I don't know. I've got nothing to say. He could be a good person, but he is friends with evil. And Lori chose that situation so she gets something on the back end. Regardless if it's for charity, it's under false pretenses. So what does that mean for Prince? Well, Aaron's estate had to have an auction. I unfortunately did not get things that I was hoping for because there are a lot of items of sentimental value that were up. There was one jacket in particular that he had on tour dates that I booked for him. And I'm like, man, I kind of want that jacket. That'd be kind of cool. Well, people bid it up so much that I couldn't even get it. There was a jacket in there, and this is the funny thing. Aaron had in his estate a Green Bay Packer jacket. Brand new, with a tag. Somebody was bidding on it, and the jacket was like $170. It had the price on it. It had the barcode as well. Somebody bid it up to $450. Guess who that jacket was for? It definitely wasn't for Aaron because, hey Aaron, how the fuck are you a Tampa Eagles fan? Well, Jake, how the fuck are you a Chicago Packers fan? Hopefully you enjoy that jacket because that was meant for me. Or for Misty, because guess what? Misty was from Wisconsin, and like me, she and I are Packers team owners. Good friends of Aaron figured out pretty quick somebody was fucking around and got the Green Bay Packer jacket. So guess what I did? I went to mitchellandness.com because it's a Mitchell & Ness Packer jacket. I bought 2 of them motherfuckers for not even half price what that person paid. So whoever it was meant for, whether it was me or Misty, are getting that fucking jacket. I also got some personal items, including, here's a little fun fact. March 7th this year, I was a contestant on The Price is Right because I was out here. Because I'm a huge NASCAR fan. I was out here for the first NASCAR race of the season because I either could go here or I could go to the Daytona 500. Well, I found out where he was buried, and I'm like, you know what? I want to see Aaron. So I came out here. I was going to spend a whole week out here. The very last day I was out here, I got to spend just like an hour because I couldn't be out here too long at that time. This time I'm spending a few with him. Right now you guys are seeing an hour of this just telling his story. The rest of the time, he and I are going to sit together. I'm going to play a Switch, which coincidentally, I got a Switch because I had a Switch code. So he and I were going to play Switch together, and I never got one until after he passed. So I got my Switch out here. I'm going to play his copy, which I got in the estate. I had one of myself. I came out here last time, and I had his favorite game, Mario Kart. So I played with him. Well, in his estate, he had a copy of Mario Kart, and that was one thing I got. So his copy is now my copy, and Misty got a Switch too. So with that jacket that Misty's gonna get, she's gonna get a copy of my copy of Mario Kart. So she and I are gonna play, and we're gonna play with him when we both come out here together next time. So, sun's in my eyes. Doesn't help I'm crying, but it burns when you're crying and the sun's in your eyes. But yeah, so I got games. I got his game chair because when I was out here last, I won a game room on The Price is Right. And it's funny because my first bid was $13.50. We all overbid, and I bid $13.50 is a fun little Taylor Swift number. You know, because I'm a Taylor Swift fan, and, you know, of course, the first time I seen him, I had to go to Taylor Swift's show, and funny enough, he was going to pay me. He was about to go to the ATM, and I'm like, oh, crap, I'm running out of time, I got to go. He's like, well, don't you want your money? I said, pay Misty, I'll get it later. Well, she did pay me his portion, but we were in a time crunch, so I had to get there, and he did pay me the $150 that show. So I did get paid, and then him and Amanda, I believe, made it to the Taylor Swift show. So Misty and I, you know, we had a good friendship with Aaron through the years. So she introduced me to him. I've returned the favor as much as I can to her. So I'm definitely going to take care of her when it comes to things I've got from his estate. So that being said, I got his Switch games. One of the games I'd never had and I've been trying to get was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the first one that came out for the Switch, and I hadn't got it yet. That was in Aaron's estate, so I got his copy. He loves Zelda too, but his favorite game was Mario Kart. So I wanted to play with him, so I got my Switch. I'm going to play a few rounds with him in a moment. Once I get off this, I'm going to turn on my hotspot and game over here for a minute with my boy, so I get to play with him for a few minutes. And then, yeah, so I got his game chair. I won on The Price is Right because after we overbid, I just heard him, like I said, I believe in the supernatural. I just heard him whisper in my ear, $8.79. It was a weird number, but I just heard $8.79. Okay, $8.79. Actual retail price, $9.01. I got to go. Today, Bob Barker is actually buried just a short distance that way, so I got to visit a few other people before I sat down here just to have my last moment before I head out of LA with Aaron. So I won on The Price is Right. I got to spin the wheel heavier than anybody would ever imagine. I got to, you know, do a lot of cool things because of Aaron. And the first time I was out here, I've had him haunt me in a few weird ways. I've had certain supernatural things happen, and I'm like, oh, that's Aaron. I went to his house last time I was out here, and it was during the monsoon here in LA. So for the first few days, I had nothing else I could do near my hotel except The Price is Right, which luckily it worked out. So I've attended 4 tapings. Oddly enough, today's taping is going to air November 6th. So that's going to be a real fun little thing. I'm not a contestant on that show, but it's going to air November 6th. So I'm going to, you know, have a little extra memory with Aaron on that one. So going through everything I got from his estate, it cost too much to ship. So I was like, I'm going to throw it in my tank and I'm going to load my car up. And I got a bunch of stuff in the back of my car. It'll go back to Chicago with me. So I'm just going to have some memories here on out anytime I'm out here with Aaron, and hopefully People actually understand cause and effect, because there were situations that happened in his life that he reacted to, and people don't understand. So now, right now, Lori manages Nick and Angel. Lori is releasing Aaron's music. Aaron Pierce, who produced Aaron's music, I feel is an innocent bystander in what's about to happen, because Lori, everybody knows what she did to Aaron that knew Aaron. There are people who are willing to, speak up, but somebody's got to make that first step. I'm going to bite the bullet, because honestly, it's been said before, but nobody fucking listened. And I know that firsthand, because I was there when around the time he fired her, and he explained why. To myself and others, by the way. So there were other people who got to hear this from a clean and sober Aaron, who was definitely mentally stable, by the way. Because people want to talk about children's mental health, but yet they don't want to talk about Aaron being molested as a child. People don't want to talk about the fact it was drug-induced psychosis rather than mental health, schizophrenia, whatever. People don't want to talk about the fact he was overprescribed medication by a doctor here in LA. Which, by the way, when he was found, I read the autopsy report. He was taking his medications as prescribed, but he shouldn't have been taking the medications he was taking. It was therapeutic levels of what he was prescribed. Even less than that, really, because, he had empty bottles and everything, one of which being from Louis, Taylor Helgeson, but Louis. That's how I know him, Louis. And Aaron and him had a different dynamic after I last seen him, because when I last seen him and Louis were real close. During COVID, a lot of shit happened. And again, the 3 years, people can talk about those 3 years. I want to talk about the 30 years prior. The guy who people fail to realize, people focus on, his music career, of course, because when he was a child, of course, they're going to talk about his music career, but they're not going to talk about his personal life, up until the last 3 years where everybody started paying attention, which is why I'm here, because he was my boy. He was my bro. He was my brother from another mother. My favorite memory with him, surprisingly, is not even my own memory. My favorite memory with him was comforting him after his father died by introducing him to my father and seeing them have a good conversation. Would a super fan do that, by the way? Because people always want to negate who I was to Aaron by calling me a super fan. Okay, I'm on Twitter. I'm very vocal on Twitter. People are going to try to, shame me. People are going to try to, make a personal attack. It has nothing to do with me and him. It's all these fake accounts with no faces who will not own up to their own name. You ever realize that? They're hurting real people by doing this fake ass shit. On all social media. It ain't just Twitter, but Twitter is the worst one of them all. His TikTok lives, his Instagram lives. Not so much Facebook, because Facebook actually kind of had a handle on the bullying aspect of it. But I would always get buried in the comments. So the last few years, my comments didn't hit as well as they did prior to everybody paying attention and prior to everybody really attacking him. Yeah, he had some personal issues. Yeah, he did some things wrong. He reacted wrong in a lot of situations. But guess what? So did the people who instigated him. So are the people who set those things in motion. Nobody's putting the blame where blame is deserved on them. Nobody's blaming Nick. Nobody's blaming Angel for, going along with all the bad people who hurt Aaron. And now are going to hurt his son by taking away for this charity, which really isn't a charity. If you look at the Honor Sleaze board, it is so bloated. I'm wondering where all this money is going that they're going to supposedly raise from this release of the album. Because they're saying they're going to put it in a trust for Prince. Well, I hope so. I hope there's enough for Prince, because guess what? Just like with Aaron, when he turns 18, if there's any debt to the estate, his heir is responsible. Just like Aaron, I don't want to see history repeat itself. I don't want to see everything come full circle when it comes to Prince. I want to see his son thrive. I want to see his son live his dream. I want to see his son maybe even follow in his father's footsteps, if that's what he wants. If that's what Prince wants, Prince should be able to, do that. And I've been talking for an hour straight, so give me 1 second, because cheers, man. Wet my whistle because I don't want to stumble on my words. I definitely want to be as clear as fucking possible with this shit. Prince, I know one day will hear the story of his father. I'm hoping he's smart enough and he learns enough to realize that some of the people his father loved did wrong by him. I hope he realizes that his father, their brother, more than likely would have forgave them if they just fucking talked to him. He was left to his own devices. If they genuinely cared, they would have stepped up and talked to him instead of going on this PR campaign to make themselves look good and blame him for their own demise. Because it really is their own demise. It's not his. We both had faith. I believe that he's looking down on me right now with the sun shining. I believe he's my guardian angel. I know he's looking out for me. He always has. He's always backed me up. Now it's my turn for his son's sake. Yeah, I know people have issue with Melanie. Even I have a little bit of small issue with Melanie. Not big, but everybody has their own opinion on people. But at least with what I know, I base my opinion on fact and what I experience. So I'm sharing what I know with you guys to make sure that his memory is not tarnished by fake bullshit. He was not mentally ill. He was under drug-induced psychosis. The fact that him, Bobby Jean, and Leslie all died in a bathroom under suspicious circumstances, that's up for debate. People can debate that all they want, but it is really telling how all three died in a bathroom. And then you have Ginger, who unfortunately passed away from cancer. That I do understand is separate, but she died 3 in a year. Aaron, Ginger, BJ. So 3 siblings died in a year. Just over, I think, a little bit with BJ. But it is really tough for me to not really ramble. I tried to do this as much in chronological order. And I know there's more stories that I probably haven't told. But I'll tell you at least what I do know. I do know he loved his mother. I do know Jane, as much as she did wrong to him. Lou Pearlman did more wrong, honestly, than Jane. I will defend her on that part at least. But she still did wrong by her son. And Bob allowed it. But the fact that I went to the memorial, and the fact that his mother was banned from his own memorial because the person who organized that memorial is the same person managing Nick and Angel, the same person who, during the meet and greet at that memorial, because again, they had artists perform, so they had a group shot. The person that was handling the wristbands so everybody could go through and get pictures, the person ripping off the wristbands, his rapist. The person who gave the worst fucking eulogy on that stage, his rapist, his molester. The person managing his music right now, his rapist, his molester. People are going to talk about quiet on the set. Well, this is real life. In music, in the music industry, it's pervasive here in Hollywood. It's been ongoing since Judy Garland. Think back to The Wizard of Oz, all the munchkins, all the adult munchkins looking up a young girl's skirt. Now, I might have just ruined The Wizard of Oz for you, but it goes back at least that far. At least. It's pervasive. It is. And that's unfortunately the reality out here. But it affected Aaron, and it affected his good friend Drake Bell, who I happened to meet that fateful night sooner or later came to be. So I'm sitting out here in the sun. I've been talking to you here on YouTube or wherever I choose to post this for over an hour. I know there's probably more that I've left unsaid, but the cause and effect that led to the last few years of his demise really is the fault of other people. And from what I experienced Aaron clean and sober until the fateful time in August where everything went to shit, and then COVID locked him in his house, where his only escape was social media, where everybody fucking treated him like shit. Everybody was fucking assholes to him. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I mean, really, it's all out there. You could look this up. I'm telling people this story because people need to know. He's my bro. So I'm telling you guys this because he deserves to be known for what really happened. So, with that being said, people are coming to visit him probably too. So I will be sitting here playing my Switch with him, and I'll tell you guys maybe more later. If there's stuff I missed, if there's stuff left out, I'll probably see the comment. Maybe I'll add more to the comments. But until then, this is Jake. I am out. So before I leave here, there are a few extra things I wish to add as kind of like a PS. When he talked to me about what he went through with Michael Jackson, he talked about Michael as if he was talking about an old friend, not the pedophile, not the monster that the media made him out to be. He talked about him like he was talking about me, or, you know, some of his friends like Chris Sarieka, Chappie, Louis, you know. He talked about him normally. His body language definitely changed when he talked about people who did things to him, like Lori and Lou. Lou, I'm 95% sure did what he did. Lori, 150,000% sure she did what she did. That being said, his mother knew about what happened to him. His sister knew about what happened to him, and his sister brushed it off. She didn't believe him. His mother did, which is why she was banned from the event, but his sister shut everything he ever had to say down. She didn't really listen to him. I knew that because I got to see a letter she wrote to him, which made me sick to my stomach, and Angel is no angel. That being said, what I would like to accomplish with this video, I would like to see on our sleeves Kids Mental Health Foundation divest themselves from Aaron Carter and Lori Knight. I would also like to see if they really want to put their money where their mouth is, if they're really dead set on supporting children's mental health. The Child Mind Institute in California actually has a tracker of where the money goes, and 98% of it goes to the actual cause instead of a bloated board. And honestly, you know, if anybody wants to negate what I'm saying, all they have to do is provide the financials to any charity navigation website and have it updated. Because honestly, this money situation is definitely showing that it's going to be a scam on Aaron's name and taking away from his son, who should have 100% of the funds, and his estate should be paid off. That being said, Angel is also still best friends to this day of Aaron's ex-girlfriend who took the knife out on him. And the restraining order situation was caused because of her. And she has outright said that that was in an attempt to take his guns away from him, because he did believe in self-defense. And also, too, with all the people who came after him, literally and figuratively, online, in person, people stalked him at his home. He did need protection of himself, which brings me to my last point. When he was found by himself under very suspicious circumstances, stuff he warned people about. He definitely should have been able to protect himself should something like that happen, and it definitely shows with the evidence that somebody else was there. And I don't believe it was just Betty, his housekeeper. I believe somebody else was there. Who? Who knows? He had a lot of bad people after him. That is a fact. And now there are bad people who are going to profit off him this coming week. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And then you're going to have, you know, the documentary. You're going to have his album come out. You're going to have a lot more eyes on Aaron's story. I'm hoping people see this part of it. At least see what people who actually knew him, what people who actually cared about him knew prior to the last 3 years of his life where all eyes were on Aaron. So I'm just going to leave it there. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. I think those are the 3 points I really want to drive home at the end, because his family failed him all the way around, from birth till death, and even after death. Right now, I'm going to make sure I honor him the best way I know how. And I'm leaving it at that. Have a good one.
He's hurt me deeply. He's hurt people that I love deeply. And he's hurt people probably that I don't know deeply. But I've always tried to lead with compassion.
The Backstreet Boys fans, some of them, in my opinion, are Backstreet Boys fans, but this poll of miserable, angry, mentally ill, like dysfunctional, lonely people who have latched on to Aaron doing all this horrible stuff to his family.
And he's hurt people probably that I don't know deeply. But I've always tried to lead with compassion.
The crazy middle-aged fucktards that believe everything that Aaron says. There's middle-aged fucktards that are Backstreet Boy fans, NSYNC fans, crazy internet people, and I don't know what their motive is to do it. The only I know it because Aaron said something really heinous about me that wasn't true, and I shut it down, and he's never spoke my name since about it, unless he does it, that he's had his fans do to many people